Welcome to Real Estate Investing Abundance, the show for busy, fulfilled professionals like you to learn how to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alan Lomax.
Enlightened investors. Today we have the investor who cracked the formula on how to make passive income with zero money out of pocket. Luis Leiva is CEO of Culture Estate and has grown his company 3,500% since 2016. He runs multiple real estate businesses, is a licensed instructor, mentor, speaker for auction.com, producer for multiple online real estate web series, and is featured on Inman and Realtor Magazine. Luis has been involved in over 2,000 transactions and closed over $500 million in sales. Among his passions is educating others so they can emulate his phenomenal success. Luis, before we dive into the formula for developing passive income with zero money out of pocket, share an experience from your formative years that helped you to be the person you are today.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate you having me on the show. And absolutely. And I'm wired a little differently, but I have found a lot of people who can relate with my story. Throughout the years growing up, I faced a lot of adversity, especially in the, I guess you would say, in the real estate aspect of it, because growing up, we never owned a home. We never owned a property. We always rented. And it was a very difficult experience renting, especially back in the 1980s. I was a very young person at that time, but my family tells me that we actually were being denied for apartments because of me, because landlords wouldn't even accept children. And it was legal back in those days. So as you can imagine, we were always very inconsistent with where we lived. And moving around so much kind of just gave me a lot of instability. And I would see other people who own homes, and I would even have experiences of meeting real estate agents. And I would think that they were like superheroes, people who would make other people's dreams come true. And I always just kind of grew up thinking that owning a home was a little bit out of our reach until I think it was about 1998, I think it was, that we finally were able to make the leap to home ownership. And that really taught me a huge lesson, a big lesson. And it was so difficult for my family to actually be able to buy. And when we did, it kind of just opened up the realm of possibility. So throughout my life, I've always kind of been that way. I've always appreciated adversity and downward pressure. Even in school growing up, I never considered myself to be a very bright kid, but it took a teacher in the fourth grade to really embarrass me and make me feel almost stupid. Very lazy is probably the better word. And she embarrassed me in front of the entire class. And I said to myself from that day on, I said, you know what? I'm never going to let people make me feel this way. So I kind of carried that mindset into the rest of my life, that I just wanted to be very good. I didn't want anyone to ever make me feel like I was less than. So anything that I've ever set my mind to, I always wanted to be at the pinnacle. I wanted to be in the top percentile of anything and everything I did. So putting that mindset together with the experiences that I had with my family about, valuing home ownership so much, when time came in my life that I needed to make a decision on what I wanted to do with my career, when I was in that stage between young adult and becoming a man, I said to myself, well, listen, I have to start doing things that are really going to stretch me mentally, stretch me in every capacity, and bring me into that next level of income. So I took a trip to Las Vegas with a bunch of friends of mine for my buddy's bachelor party. And it was my first time really getting out of New Jersey and seeing how other people actually lived. I saw people pulling up in exotic cars. I saw people dropping money like it was nothing. And I said to myself, well, I'm never going to get like this if I keep doing what I'm doing now. So in order for me to get to the next level of income, I need to do something different. So from that moment on, I made a decision that I was going to get out of the business that I was at that moment, which was I owned a barbershop, and I wasn't doing too well as an owner of a barbershop. I did better as an independent barber, but I appreciate it, and I would never take those experiences back because I learned so much about business firsthand instead of studying out of a book. So I knew that I didn't want to be in that business anymore. So the moment I got back from Las Vegas, we wrapped it up, sold my barbershop, took a loss on it, and got full head on into real estate. I started my career in real estate as a real estate agent, and I was so happy because I was not stuck in one place 6 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. I was actually meeting new people, getting to leave one location to go to another, see the sunlight. And at the same time, I was making people's dreams come true. Now, granted, my first year, I didn't make too many people's dreams come true. I think I made $20,000 my first year as a real estate agent. And believe it or not, I was happy. I was happier making $20,000 a year than I was making six figures cutting hair. I truly was. So I knew that I didn't want to go back to what I was previously doing. So I just kept on going forward. And my next year, I ended up becoming the top producer of my office. And I knew that real estate was for me. And obviously, anyone who gets into real estate, they're pitching a product, and the product is housing. So I call it almost like the totem pole or the pinnacle of being a real estate agent is becoming an investor. Because as you become better, you learn your product more. You learn the intricacies of buying and selling. And ultimately, you want to be able to use housing as not only a source of passive income, but also as a way to retire early one day. So when the opportunity came for me to start investing into real estate, I was so excited because remember, this was the kid who never grew up with a place to call his own. My family never had a stable home. And the moment that I started getting homes that were investments, I'm like, this is not even a home that I live in. This is a home now that I own that I help other people with. I never took that for granted once. So in 2014, I bought one of my first ever, it wasn't the first piece of property, but it was the most significant piece of property I bought. In 2014, I bought my first ever multifamily house as a short sale, a property that I negotiated. And I believe I paid about $40,000 for a 2-family house in New Jersey. People don't even believe me because nobody wanted real estate during that time. It wasn't really, it wasn't the hottest thing out. So I was able to pick that up and I put about $30,000 into it and then I refinanced it. This is where it got interesting because now I was able to refinance it and I pulled out every single penny I put into it. Now I own that piece of property with nothing out of pocket. And then I rinse and repeat. And that's what I kept doing. And I accumulated about 50 units in 4 years doing that exact recipe. And I've been very blessed that I've had the right people in my corner. I've had a few partners along the way who are amazing people who we've elevated each other. I've had amazing people who have been my back office, property managers. And I've had a team. I've developed a team of people around me. But if you would have told me that when I was still cutting hair, I would have never believed you. So, to answer your question, the thing that's really helped me the most has always been adversity. And that's what's helped me climb to where I am right now, which is currently trying to reinvent myself right now. And we'll get into that in a little bit.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. As an industry-leading, relationship-focused, design-build construction firm, Mosaic Construction has worked in many different asset classes from multifamily to retail, medical, industrial, and commercial. Mosaic Construction works to execute interior and exterior renovations with their team of trades and project managers. Their experience with value-add improvements has resulted in increased ROI and long-term value of the assets. They work nationally in partnership with local trades to deliver thoughtful, problem-solving construction management solutions to all their clients. For a personal, no-obligation consultation, call Ira Singer, 773-491-3145, or email Ira at mosaicconstruction.net. You can also find Ira on LinkedIn. It's always easy to look out at the world like you did in Las Vegas and see people who are doing better than you are and come to the conclusion that I just don't have it and get discouraged. But it stimulated you and you turned your whole entire life around. Interesting trajectory there. Well, tell us, so you're still in the brokerage industry as well as in property management. What's going on in the current market?
Okay, great question. Absolutely great question. So, right before the pandemic, we were gearing up to have the best year, the best few months that I've ever probably seen in real estate. The month of March, I think it was the month of March of 2020, we were probably scheduled to bring in several hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit from our investment properties, our wholesales, and transactions that we had in the pipeline. And every single one of those deals died. I can't even make this up. Every single one just went south. So it was very disheartening. So what I figured at that point is that, listen, things are going to be changing and I need to adapt. I can't continue doing the same thing and expecting different results. So what we did at that point is I realized that in order to be able to survive another situation like this, a black swan event or a prolonged pandemic, whatever the case may be in the future, my business model has to be mean and lean. So at the time when I was running my real estate operations, our overhead was over $60,000 a month. And it was not sustainable when you have months that drain you like this. So what we decided to do was we turned our entire real estate operation into a virtual real estate operation, which eliminated a lot of need for staff and eliminated a lot of need for overhead. I did this by partnering up with a real estate company by the name of eXp Realty, which I did in December of 2019, right before the pandemic. But I never let go of my physical location until the pandemic hit. Once the pandemic hit, we ended up taking full advantage of the technology they have, which is basically a virtual office place where you can go in as an avatar and communicate with almost 60,000 real estate agents across the world. It's an international company. So we did. I was a little afraid to do that initially. I surveyed all of my agents and I said, look, guys, we're working from home. We're mandated to work from home. Are you guys comfortable with this? Because if you are, I can afford to give you more commission. And at the same time, we can let go of the office space and we can all work virtually. Everyone pretty much hands down said, you know what, this is not too bad. We're kind of cool with this. So let's do the virtual thing. And we did. So from that moment on, I think we grew our real estate brokerage. At that time, I think we had about like 75 or 80 agents on board, which was less than what we had going into the pandemic. But obviously, a lot of people didn't survive in the business. But now I think we're approaching about 200 real estate agents in 10 different states across the country. So we've done very well. And it's also allowed me to no longer have to be stationed in New Jersey. I actually moved to Naples, Florida in August of last year. And now I'm living my best life, which is something I've always wanted to do for myself and my family. I'm still running my team remotely and I'm looking for new opportunities in real estate here in Florida, primarily because of the type of real estate that I gravitate to, which is long-term rentals. New Jersey is not a very friendly state for that. And the reason I say that is because I have tenants right now who almost haven't paid me rent in almost a year. And I cannot get them out because the courts will not see any landlord-tenant issues right now. But in Florida, if you don't pay your rent, you're out within 30 to 60 days, like still in this arena that we're in. So I'm right now reinventing everything. I'm selling off my properties in New Jersey for the most part, the ones that are most problematic. I'm reconvening down here, which is very exciting because houses in Florida weren't built in 1900. We don't have lead paint. We don't have underground oil tanks. We don't have basements that get flooded constantly. We get hurricanes, but you're paying a pretty hefty price in homeowners insurance that'll cover that if the event ever shows. So a lot of less kind of moving parts and a lot more friendly laws for landlords down here. So excited about that.
Well, sounds like an excellent move, and congratulations on being able to make that while still holding your team together. Well, what do you mean by the cost of investing? What is the cost of investing?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of people don't know this going in because there's a lot of hidden expenses in acquiring real estate. People look at a property and they say, okay, well, the type of real estate I like doing it. Don't get me wrong. I've done flips, but a flip has to be extremely juicy for me to consider it even from the get-go. Because when you buy a property, like people do best case scenario pricing. What I mean by that is if you buy a home, you're like, oh, I'll spend $10,000 on the kitchen, I'll spend $5,000 on the bathroom, and I'll spend, maybe $5,000 cleaning up the outside and the landscape. I'll be all in for $20,000. And then you buy the house, you start taking down some walls. You find out that you've got knob and tube wiring, which is the most dangerous kind of electrical you can have. You've got an underground oil tank. You've got 3 layers of roofing that you didn't account for. You've got all these things that you didn't know the house needed. Meanwhile, your expenses go from $20,000 to now almost ballooning up to $40,000, and it wasn't in your budget. So why a lot of people get in trouble and get themselves in more than they care to talk about is because they don't do their numbers correctly. A lot of wise people have said, I don't know who I can attribute to this, but a lot of people who know real estate have said, you make your money when you buy. You don't make your money when you sell. The reason why that is said is because if you don't do your comps right, and if you don't do your expenses correctly before jumping into a house, you're going to find yourself underwater. And yes, you can lose money in real estate. I've had homes that I've lost tons of money on. I had a home that I lost $75,000 on simply because I didn't do my due diligence and I didn't know it was in a flood zone. I've had another home that I lost almost $150,000 on because I had a terrible partner who basically left me holding the bag. And, these things happen. So you have to know not only what you're doing in real estate, but who you're doing it with could be just as dangerous.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Would you ever invest all your money in a single stock? Very unlikely. Yet investors are willing to risk $50,000 to $100,000 in a single property in real estate all the time. Avestor is the world's first customizable real estate investment platform. Investors can build their own custom portfolios selecting investments across multiple asset classes such as single-family homes, multifamily, student housing, self-storage, and shopping centers. You can also invest across multiple markets and different time frames. Avestor also enables other real estate entrepreneurs and syndicators to build and use Avestor's infrastructure and cloud platform to create their own customizable real estate funds. To learn more, visit us at avestorinc.com. Avestor, real estate investing made simple.
Well, some hard lessons, but good lessons that will benefit you as you go down the road there. I've been through the same thing, and I can't agree with you more. Flipping is glamorized in lots of ways, and people think that's the way to get into real estate, but there's a lot of booby traps in flipping.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. It's better be a really, really, really good opportunity before I'm going to do another flip here. Talk to us about scaling up.
Scaling up, absolutely. So let me explain this to you. The hardest home you'll ever buy will be your first one. Hardest one, ever be your first one. The reason why I say this is because when I got into buying properties, it was very hard for me the first, I would say, year or two. And the reason why is because when I started thinking about making investing more of a full-time thing for me, hard money had just kind of like surfaced. And I started talking to hard money lenders about me, them giving me an opportunity to buy a property. And it was very hard to get hard money lending back then. And I used to joke around that it's called hard money lending because it's extremely hard to get. Nowadays, a lot of people have gotten kind of spoiled where, easy money, easy hard money. I always used to say that hard money is probably the next subprime, but it was getting to the point where it was so easy for anyone to get it. But initially, when I started, everyone was turning me down. And then anyone who would be willing to give me a hard money loan, it was 18% interest for like 4 or 5 points. It just didn't make any sense. So what I did was I just played the slow game, like they say, slow and steady wins the race. It absolutely does, because I know I could have got myself in a lot of trouble taking those loans. So what I did was this: you got to get creative. I looked for opportunity. So I knew that I had to add value in order to be able to make money in real estate. That's a given. It's easy to give up, but it's harder to start thinking creatively, thinking outside the box. So what I did was I looked for investors who were making money. And I said to myself, what kind of value can I bring to these investors for myself to be able to raise some capital on my own, so that way I don't need a hard money lender? So what I did was I sought out a guy who was buying, very active buying. And I asked him, I said, listen, is there anything you need help with? He's like, yeah, I got these properties that, I'm working on right now and I don't have any buyers for them. I'd like to make sure that I have a buyer by the time it's done. I said, okay, well, that makes sense. So what I did was I reverse wholesaled the property. What I did was I went out and I started looking for buyers that were looking for these properties. And then I'd go back to them and say, look, I think I have someone for your home. And I'd find people who were looking for homes, and then I'd bring them to him and then I'd ask him, how much is it that you're going to be asking for this property? The guy would tell me, I want $300,000. So then I'd go back to my client and I'd say, listen, I have someone who'd be willing to sell you the house for $320,000, $310,000, $315,000, whatever the case may be. So those were my first few deals where I really started to make very good income. And I positioned myself as a wholesaler, but instead of getting the property and locking it down myself, which is a little risky move, because unless you intend to close on that property, you could be losing your deposit. And you can also give yourself a really bad reputation if you start not closing on these things. So what I did was I looked for the people with the inventory and I partnered with them. And I did about a series of closings like this. I must have done about, I would say 5 to 10 within a year. And I raised enough money where I went in and I started buying homes cash myself. The first home I bought in this manner, which is not the one that I bought in 2014, it was actually prior to that. But the reason why I didn't mention that one as being my first is because I flipped those. I didn't keep them. So what I did was the money that I took from these partnerships I did, I went to my parents and I said, look, I've got this amount of money. I know you guys have a couple dollars that you guys have been sitting on, for your nest egg. Why don't we partner up and buy a house together and we could flip it? So we did. We bought a multifamily house, again, in Elizabeth, New Jersey. We fixed it up, cleaned it up between my brother who has a construction company and my dad and myself. We rolled up our sleeves. We made this place look very presentable and we sold it. We made a very handsome profit. I think I made about $30,000. My dad made $30,000 and we paid my brother $30,000 for helping with the construction. So I think we bought it for $60,000 and we made $90,000 on that home in I think 6 months or maybe less, maybe quicker. And it was a great experience. My dad was very happy and we did a series of those of flips and I was able to help my father retire. My dad and my mom retired soon after. And it was a very, very, very lucrative time for myself in the flipping game. But I knew that I didn't want to be in the flipping game because the capital gains that you get and the amount of pressure that you have where the clock is literally ticking every day is costing you more money. And if you get a bad buyer or maybe you get two bad buyers that hold you up for additional 3 to 6 months, those are all costs that you can't really predict. I didn't like the model. I like the model that I explained to you earlier where I can buy a property, fix it up, rent it, and then refinance it, pull all my money out. I still have the asset. I've got passive income, and I can even maybe pull out a little extra than what I put into it if the deal is juicy enough, and then roll that into another one, and then do it again and do it again and do it again. And before you know it, in a few years, you're a multimillionaire instead of flipping. And, that money's going to, I don't care how conservative you are, money in the bank for a lot of people, it's going to go places that you didn't expect it to go. And having it tied up in real estate is a very good forced savings plan, in my opinion. That's been my experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. My experience as well. Cash sitting there just has a way of disappearing. And unless you put it to work, it seems to work for itself and go work for somebody else, actually, is what it generally does. Power of networking. You've alluded to that, building of partnerships and building the networks. How do you do that? Where do you look to build the networks? And how do you know if you are building networks with the people that are really there to benefit you while you are helping them as well?
Yeah, that's another really great point that you brought up because everyone's buddy when you guys are net positive. But when deals get ugly and hairy and you lose money, everybody forgets everything. And you no longer, are that person's BFF, I guess you would call it. So I will say this much. I was never really big on networking. I was very introverted. And I had to learn to get out of that. And I did. As a leader, if you call yourself a real estate investor or you want to be a wholesaler, whatever you want to be, you have to learn to be a social person. You cannot be a secret investor. You cannot be a secret agent. You cannot do anything in secret and expect to get anywhere. So I learned this the hard way getting into sales because as a barber, people come to me. Word of mouth travels. People come to me. I don't have to go out there and hand out my business card. But as an investor, you have to go out there. It's literally like hunting. If you don't go out there for the hunt, you will not eat. So the more people you can contact, the more people you can speak to and network with, the better. So what I did was I started to do presentations. And sooner or later, I started to also go to sheriff sales. And I started to introduce myself to investors, introduce myself to anyone and everyone. And one day, I bumped into a gentleman named Bill Smith. Bill Smith was a representative for auction.com. And I said to Bill Smith, hey, Bill, I'm a big fan of your website. So I'm wearing a shirt. I said, I bought homes on your site, a real estate agent in the area. I'm also an investor. I buy homes here at Sheriff Sale. If you guys ever need any help, I'm always here to help you guys out. So he was very impressed by, the conversation we had. And he gave my phone number to a regional manager who ended up calling me a few months down the line. And we had the best conversation. I think we spoke for over an hour on the phone. And they said they were going to start a pilot program to educate investors how to use their website and to educate real estate agents on how to also leverage their website for their investors. So I told them, hey, count me in. I'll do anything I can to help you guys. No compensation, nothing. But when they did roll out the program, they would do a weekly seminar in different parts of the state. And I would travel there. And I would give these presentations for them in a room, probably anywhere between 30 to 100 investors at a time. And it brought not only myself, but our organization so much credibility. I met so many people who want to, at that point, then partner with us. But I was very careful because I don't partner with anyone who I don't know or I haven't known for a while. but we figured out a way to do it with people who wanted to be partners with us. And we created this program called the proxy bidding program. So the proxy bidding program, which basically allowed us to do is if an investor wanted to work with us, we would enter into a relationship where we said, when we find you a property that is of your liking, we charge a $10,000 commission. This is our fee to you. No matter if I find it for you in a short sale, if I find it for you at a sheriff sale, it doesn't matter where, we'll find you a property. Only if you like it and the numbers make sense will our commission ever be due. So we started going to sheriff sales all across the state of New Jersey for our investors, and we made them so much money until obviously the sheriff sales all closed down because of the pandemic. And now it's very hard to even get a good deal anywhere because there's such a lack of inventory. We put that program on freeze. So when I started this podcast with you, I said, right now I'm in the middle of kind of reinventing myself because I don't continue doing things that are not profitable and a win-win situation for both our investors and myself. I don't like seeing people take losses. I like repeat business and I like referrals. So right now I'm in the process of understanding a new marketplace, understanding new laws and reinventing myself here in Florida. And I'm excited because I'm always best when my back is to the wall. I'm always best when I am forced to come up with something new and innovative. That's how we kind of created everything else we've made. So yeah, that's the chapter we are right now. And I'm very excited because we're literally writing it as we speak. But I'm sure that within a few moments time, we'll be right there where we were before and probably even better because I've learned a lot of things along the way. And one of the things, like you mentioned earlier, was networking. So in the area where I am right now, in Naples, we do not have a real estate meetup. There is no real estate club here that covers primarily Naples and the surrounding area. We do have a Southwest Florida REIA. There is one, but it's not really like an event. It's more kind of like your standard, boring, luncheon that they do once a month. And, you go through the same kind of like boring guests and things like that. What I'm creating right now, I'm in the process of doing is creating a real estate mixer. So we can meet after work, at a nice location. Everyone, pays a couple $100 a year in dues and allows us to get a nice venue. And we go there and we get to network instead of just sitting in a chair and being spoken to. Networking allows you to be able to meet different people from different walks of life and then also be able to be in an atmosphere where you might get some ideas that you didn't have before, So I'm excited about that. And that's our next roadmap right now because we definitely need to let our presence be known down here.
Enlightened investors will be right back after this important announcement. I have a big ask that will only take a moment of your time. Ratings and reviews are the lifeblood of our podcast. So to leave a review, iPhone or other Apple iOS device users, go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes. For all you non-Apple device users, go to podchasers.com. On either platform, search for Real Estate Investing Abundance. Once found, please leave a review and a rating. Subscriptions are also vital to our show's success, so please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. It is free to subscribe, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Well, I like that example you just gave, that if it isn't working, you just acknowledge that and let it go and reinvent yourself and move on to the next big thing. Excellent example there. That's not an easy skill to develop. It is so easy to hold on to what has been tried and true, even when it is no longer tried and true and working for us there. So excellent example, Luis. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, Alan.
Well, what is your end game? Where do you plan to end up here?
Okay, so the end game is this. My end game is to be 110% passive. Passive income is the best income I think that anyone should be striving to. The reason why I'm not a huge fan of flipping is because I feel like it's a job. It's an active job where you need to constantly be monitoring your crew. You need to be monitoring your timelines, your buyers like this. It definitely starts to feels like more like a job. Now, when you are able to accumulate a lot of apartment units, maybe even apartment buildings, yeah, you do work for an amount of time. After everything is now stabilized, you can assign a property manager, you can assign a back-end accountant, whatever the case you need to do, and you can just let that thing go on autopilot. Now, you do have to check in with your people from time to time, but it becomes a very passive type of investment. It's not to say that it's boring, because you will get phone calls all the time about repairs, incidents, and those types of things. but it's at the end of the day, it's worth it because you're getting a steady stream of income when your investments are positive, when you buy right. Now, my end game would be to continue building more passive income through real estate. But there's another type of passive income that a lot of people don't know about. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you guys today is because the model of a brokerage, traditional brokerage, in my opinion, is broken. So what I mean by that is that I'm a real estate broker and I've owned real estate brokerages in the past. The last one I owned independently, we grew that to almost 100 agents in 2 years. We did phenomenally well. But the problem is that you can only expect agents to be with you for so long until agents get what they need from you and they move on for better commission splits, for better opportunities. So I recognize that. So the reason why I knew that that model was broken and needed to be fixed is because I experienced it firsthand. People whose hands I've held, people who I taught how to use computers end up becoming top producing agents, and then they go. So when you're in the people business, it's not a very leverageable, scalable business because people have these crazy things called legs and they use them when they're not happy or when they're feeling in a certain mood. But what I've learned is that the company that I partnered with, eXp Realty, what they offered me was a solution for that, and it allowed me to also gain my time and my freedom back. As a real estate broker, you work harder than anyone else in your office. And sometimes you don't make any money because you're the one who has to cover all the expenses at the end of the month. Very true story if anyone out there is thinking about opening their own brokerage. So what I did was I partnered with eXp Realty, and their model is that they will handle all my back end work, my compliance work, my legal work, all of the things that don't move my needle, all the things that I used to pay other people within the office to have to do, they do. My only responsibility, if I want, is to continue growing my team, continue growing my group, and mentor them. That's it. So what I did was I focused all of that energy that I had into now helping with growing our team not only into different states, but also into different countries. I'm in talks right now with agents in Canada, in Spain, and different places around the world. And I'm excited because my dream was always to grow the company nationally. But franchising is a very difficult thing. And I guess you would call it a way to get yourself into legal issues pretty quickly. If someone's not happy with the franchise, they can just turn around and sue you to get out of it. It's very costly. So I looked at all these things. I even went as far as paying for franchising. When I saw this model that eXp had put out, I said that this is literally what I'm trying to build. They already have on a silver platter. And what I'm leading up to is this, which is very exciting. So eXp Realty allows me to bring on my team. So I bring on my team. I could still run it as if it was my brokerage. The only difference is that legally I can only call myself a team leader, but I still have all my agents with me, and I can be as involved or as disinvolved as I want to be in their day-to-day activities. I choose to not be involved in a day-to-day activity. They are very much independent. I am here for them if they need me, but I don't get involved in going over their stats or their numbers or anything like that because I only work with agents who are self-motivated and self-driven. We do have team meetings, but it's not about, hey, this is the time you get up. Hey, this is what you got to do throughout the day. We do more mindset stuff and we do more dialogue practice and things of that nature. But what is powerful is that eXp Realty has allowed me to now give those agents who came along with me, those agents that are on the team with me, giving them the opportunity to now also have every single opportunity I have as a broker, they have as well. So if they want to start a team, they can go on and do so. They get stock in the company, which allows them to have ownership rights in the company. There's 6 different ways that the company awards them with that. But what I'm leading up to is that they have created the perfect retention model. If you own a piece of the company, if you're getting residual income, well, residual income is where I'm going with this because I told you passive, right? So if you're getting passive income from agents that you brought on board. So for instance, if I was to bring on my agents, every time they close something, I'm getting paid, but I didn't have to pay any overhead and I didn't have to do any of the paperwork for the closing the transaction, but I'm still getting paid. And this is where it gets crazy. Any agent that comes on because of my agent. So for instance, if my agent brought on their cousin, and a lot of agents bring on other agents and never get any compensation anywhere. So if the agent brings on someone and then that agent brings on someone 7 generations deep, then I will still collect commission on those agents. So I looked at this model and I will tell you right now that if this model only grew at a very minimum rate for the next 5 years, I'll be making over $1 million a year passively without having to do a quarter of the effort that I used to do before running a brokerage of 70 agents. So when I saw this model, I saw how scalable it was and how powerful it was. We made the move, and we're very lucky to do that. We made the move at the right time when the stock, I think, was trading around $7. And then when Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone joined recently the company, because they saw the opportunity as well, the stock hit $160. I had agents calling me crying, saying, thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity. I now have money that I can use for my kids' college, for retirement. I never even knew what stock was before we joined eXp Realty. So that is my next passive goal. The person who helped me make the decision to come on is a big investor, owns apartment buildings. And he said, my goal used to be to have 1,000 units. My new goal is to have 1,000 real estate agents in my team, because real estate agents won't call me in the middle of the night that their pipes are leaking. And when I saw that, and I saw that opportunity of what he was talking about, I said, I think you're onto something. So between the real estate income and the brokerage income, which is passive as well, those are my two main things that I'm focusing on. And the third cog in that wheel is my YouTube channel. So what I do is I educate people on real estate and financial education on YouTube, and it's starting to grow. We've grown our subscriber base count now to about 23,000 subscribers now, which our goal for this year is to get to 100,000 subscribers. And that's also another passive way for us to be able to get income, not only through the revenue that YouTube pays us, but also from affiliate sales, also from course sales, also from being able to get people who are interested in buying real estate. We refer those out to other real estate agents. So it's just a lot of moving parts, but I'm excited because I feel like that's where all of marketing is going. It's going into the education space. The more you can educate, the more people trust you, and we're excited for it.
Well, congratulations. 3 different ways to generate passive income there. Luis, share with us how we can connect with you.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me on the show with you. If your audience would like to know more about myself and our organization, you can visit culture.estate. From there, you can also be linked to our Instagram account, which is also culture.estate, and our YouTube channel, which is Culture Estate. So all of it is very easy to find. Culture Estate anywhere. You can just find us. Very unique name. And I was lucky enough to find all the domains and all of the social media handles were available for it. So we're pretty simple. If you guys want to find us, I'm sure you'll find a way out.
Well, for our last question today, Luis, imagine that you've come to the end of your life, and as you lay on your deathbed,
yes,
what will you look back on with your greatest sense of joy and satisfaction?
Yeah, thank you. My greatest sense of joy till this day has been able to give my parents the opportunity to have financial freedom. My parents came to this country with nothing, sacrificed everything, raised myself, and pretty much, I don't even know how they did it. It's very, very difficult to even explain, but working minimum wage jobs, just to be able to provide, and never lacking food and never lacking shelter, and being able to experience what it is to go window shopping and just going, for entertainment, going fishing with my dad. Like, that was the most extravagant thing we would do. But being a great role model to me, and just always having that love from both my mother and my father, when I had the opportunity to help them retire, help them buy a farm, help them build their retirement home, that was the most rewarding feeling I've ever felt in my life. Next to obviously having my daughters. I have 2 girls. One is 6, one is 9 right now. And real estate has given me the opportunity to give them a life that I never had. And hopefully one day I can teach them what I've learned through real estate, what I've learned through investing, and continue that generational knowledge, which is more important than wealth, because wealth could be squandered, but knowledge is one of the only things in the world that the more you give it away, the more it grows.
Well, Luis, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and have you on the show. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Alan. Anytime, brother.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.